Talk. Your baby's brain is building itself at a rate of over 1 million neural connections per second. And the single most powerful fuel for that construction is your voice. When you talk to your baby, even about mundane things like what you're cooking or what the weather looks like, you're not just filling silence. You're wiring their prefrontal cortex for language, memory, and abstract thinking. Studies show that babies who hear more spoken words in their first 3 years develop significantly larger vocabularies and stronger cognitive skills by the time they enter school. The trick is that it has to be live, directed speech, not background noise from a TV or a podcast playing in the other room. Your baby needs to hear words aimed at them, with eye contact, with emotion, with rhythm. The shadow is that silence feels natural when you're exhausted. But every sentence you speak is literally shaping the architecture of their brain. Read. Reading to a baby who can't understand a single word feels pointless. It isn't. When you read aloud, your baby's brain is doing something remarkable. It's learning the melody of language before it learns the meaning. The rise and fall of your voice, the pauses between sentences, the repetition of sounds, all of this trains the auditory cortex to detect patterns, which is the foundation of all learning. Babies who are read to daily from birth show measurably stronger neural activation in the regions responsible for language comprehension and imagination. You don't need expensive books or a perfect reading voice. A cereal box works, a grocery list works. What matters is the consistent exposure to structured language delivered by someone they trust. The catch is that most parents wait until the child seems ready. By then, thousands of hours of prime wiring time have already passed. You're not reading to teach them words. You're reading to teach their brain how to learn. Play. Play is not a break from learning. Play is how the brain learns. When a baby stacks blocks and watches them fall, they're running physics experiments. When they bang a spoon on a pot, they're testing cause and effect. When they hand you a toy and you hand it back, they're learning the foundations of social exchange. Free, unstructured play activates the prefrontal cortex, the same region responsible for planning, decision-making, and impulse control in adults. It also triggers the release of BDNF, a protein that strengthens synaptic connections and promotes the growth of new neurons. The problem is that modern parents often replace play with stimulation, flashy toys, apps, structured activities. But a baby doesn't need entertainment. They need open-ended exploration with simple objects and a present caregiver. The most powerful toy in the world is a cardboard box and a parent who's paying attention. Respond. When your baby cries and you pick them up, you're not spoiling them. You're building their brain's stress regulation system. Responsive parenting, consistently reacting to a baby's signals with warmth and attention, directly strengthens the development of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which controls how the brain handles stress for the rest of their life. Babies whose cries are answered quickly and consistently develop stronger neural pathways for emotional regulation, focus, and social bonding. They learn that the world is predictable, and that frees their brain to explore instead of defend. The misunderstanding is that responding too fast creates dependency. The science says the opposite. Secure attachment, formed through thousands of small responsive moments, produces more independent, more curious, and more emotionally resilient children. You're not answering a cry. You're teaching a brain that it's safe to be curious. Nutrition. The brain consumes 60% of a baby's total energy intake. 60%. That means what you feed them is, quite literally, what their brain is made of. Omega-3 fatty acids, particularly DHA, are essential building blocks for the myelin sheath, the insulation around neurons that determines how fast signals travel. Iron supports the production of neurotransmitters. Zinc fuels memory formation. Breast milk, when available, delivers all of these in bioavailable form, along with antibodies that protect the gut-brain axis. After 6 months, introducing nutrient-dense whole foods, eggs, avocado, fish, dark leafy greens, matters more than most parents realize. The shadow here is that processed baby foods, the convenient pouches and sweet purees, often lack the micronutrient density the brain actually needs. Convenience feeds the schedule, whole food feeds the brain. Music. Music doesn't just soothe a baby, it reorganizes their brain. When a baby hears music, their auditory cortex, motor cortex, and prefrontal cortex all activate simultaneously, a level of cross-brain engagement that almost no other stimulus produces. Rhythm trains temporal processing, which is the brain's ability to predict what comes next. Melody strengthens pattern recognition. Singing, specifically, combines language exposure with emotional bonding and auditory training in a single act. Babies exposed to regular music, especially live singing from a caregiver, show accelerated development in language acquisition, spatial reasoning, and emotional regulation. You don't need to be a good singer. The baby doesn't care about pitch. They care about presence, repetition, and the feeling of being sung to. Music isn't a bonus. It's a multi-channel brain workout disguised as a lullaby. No screens. A screen gives a baby a flood of sensory input, but input is not the same as learning. Before the age of 2, a baby's brain cannot extract meaningful information from a flat, two-dimensional screen the way it can from a three-dimensional, interactive world. The rapid visual changes in screen content actually overstimulate the developing visual cortex, while understimulating the areas responsible for deep focus and sustained attention. Studies consistently show that increased screen time before age 2 correlates with language delays, shorter attention spans, and reduced parent-child interaction, which is where the real damage happens. Every minute a baby spends watching a screen is a minute they're not hearing your voice, touching real objects, or reading your facial expressions. The uncomfortable truth is that screens aren't neutral. They're not just empty time. They actively displace the interactions that build intelligence. The best screen setting for a baby's brain is off. Sleep. Sleep is not downtime. For a baby, sleep is when the brain does its most critical work. During deep sleep, the hippocampus replays and consolidates everything the baby experienced while awake. Every face, every sound, every new pattern gets filed, strengthened, or pruned. Growth hormone, which fuels brain development, is released almost exclusively during sleep. A baby who sleeps poorly doesn't just feel cranky. Their brain physically cannot process what it learned that day. Consistent sleep routines, dark environments, and predictable bedtimes aren't luxuries. They're neurological necessities. The trap is that parents often sacrifice sleep consistency for flexibility, skipping naps for errands, pushing bedtimes for visitors. But a baby's circadian rhythm is fragile, and once disrupted, the cognitive cost compounds. You're not putting them to sleep. You're giving their brain permission to grow. Explore. A baby crawling across a room is not just moving. They're mapping space, calculating distance, testing gravity, and building a three-dimensional model of reality inside their brain. Physical exploration activates the vestibular system, the proprioceptive system, and the hippocampus simultaneously, creating dense, interconnected neural networks that become the foundation for spatial reasoning, problem-solving, and mathematical thinking later in life. Tummy time, crawling, reaching for objects, touching different textures, all of this is the brain calibrating itself against the physical world. The mistake is creating environments that are too safe, too clean, too controlled. A baby who never struggles to reach a toy never builds the neural persistence that becomes grit. A baby who never touches grass or sand or cold water misses out on thousands of sensory data points their brain is hungry for. Let them move, let them touch, let them fail and try again. The world is the curriculum. Every one of these habits is simple. None of them require money, degrees, or special equipment. What they require is presence, the decision to be there, consistently, during the years when the brain is building itself faster than it ever will again. Intelligence isn't something you're born with. It's something that gets built, one conversation, one page, one messy, unstructured afternoon at a time.
Now you know the 9 habits. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and tell us in the comments. Which of these are you already doing with your baby?